You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week, our team discusses news and events from this past week, as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms like Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbay, Speaker, Google Play, and more. And of course, this podcast is also available through our partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and it is my honor to introduce my two co-hosts. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how's it going today?
It's going fantastic. How's it going for you, Miranda?
It is going well. I know earlier we were talking about our weather variances in the different locations that we are at. Before we get to that, though, we're going to get into the third member of this trio, and that's who?
Who?
It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Yes, it's still me.
Still you. I couldn't jump into the weather conversation without you bringing you and Brendan, because we are all in three different states with three very different weather patterns and weather conditions. So, I mean, gosh, over here in Arizona, it was blistering. I was recently in Las Vegas, and that was blistering. I know Dusty's going through some pretty big weather, even right now.
Extreme weather.
Yeah.
Extreme.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of severe weather going on around us. So far, none here yet, but it's headed this way. And we had the extreme temperatures last week. We had 102 and 100 degrees 2 days in a row, which was crazy, especially for June.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're supposed to hit 102 coming this weekend, which is, as I was saying when we were talking about this before, like really unheard of for most people that have lived in the Seattle area all their lives. So it's crazy to us. I'm sure it's normal to you, Miranda, but you know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the calendar right now. The weather report. We're gonna hit a high of 105 on Sunday. I'll be around 101 to 103 for Friday through Monday.
Whew.
So, yeah, that's just not good. But we want to do real quick, because we kind of forgot last week.
We had a plan, but the plan was wrong.
Exactly. So yeah, we planned it. It was wrong. We avoided the plan. Now we're coming back with part of the plan. And that's a birthday shout out. We want to give a belated birthday shout out to one of our previous guests, friend of the show, part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network family, and part of luchacentral.com, Jerry Villagrana, world-renowned Lucha Libre photographer, of course, a major part of Eat Like a Luchador cookbook, and just world-renowned for his amazing photography. It was his birthday last Monday. Again, part of the plan that didn't work out. But, it's always great. It's nice to have belated birthday wishes. I don't know about you guys, but even if my birthday passed, whether it's been a day or a week, having those, little birthday messages is always nice to have. So a very, very happy birthday to you, Jerry.
Yeah, if you've seen the Eat Like a Luchador cookbook, you've seen a lot of Jerry's work. So
Yeah,
I mean,
and he was one of the people that picked the other photographers' pictures too. So him and Kevin talked about that a lot. Like about a year ago, actually, we talked with him on that when he was
yeah,
on the show. I need to go back and listen to that now that the book's out. There we go.
yeah, yeah. There's a plug for you.
Done.
It wasn't meant to be a plug, but yeah. Like, I suddenly realized because we were talking about his birthday, right? And then he also got the Mass Republic promotion right around this time last year too, where he became one of their officers. So it's apparently a very good time of the year to be Jerry Villagrana. Not that there's a bad time, but
Yeah.
Well, again, happy birthday from our team, from myself, Dusty, and Brennan to you, Jerry.
Absolutely.
Hope you had a great birthday. Well, we always do it this way, and why change a good thing? Why fix something if it ain't broke? Let's start our show with the road back to shows.
All right. Well, I actually have a really short one this week. I don't know what was going on. Normally, there's this giant tsunami of information that comes out, but we're going to start with Mexico City is still green. I'm assuming it's still green because this, I believe, was going to be an off week, but I didn't see an update from my normal couple sources saying that they backrolled or anything else. So we're still marching ahead towards more fans at shows. And then no news from, like, last week we talked about this. Federación was probably going to have more news, but there's really been no news other than more wrestlers canceling their appearance, even though the show itself was postponed. So, very bizarre. I'm continuing to keep an eye on this. They are teasing they're going to have a press conference at some point. I think that the honeymoon period of having all of these really amazing high-end talent wrestlers combining with this new federation ended prematurely, and now we're kind of looking to see where the pieces are going to land before we get our next big announcement. But we will get something. I guess I shouldn't say that. It could easily just fade into obscurity, but I'm sure some interviewer somewhere will stick a microphone and say, so what do you have to say about Federación to some wrestler, and we'll get some variation on information at some point. But that's it. That's I did not have a lot of big news in the road back to shows this week. There are a few other kind of fun stories that that have popped up on Lucha Central. So I am going to give the plug there to go check out a couple of articles there. It's, it's fun things, people going shopping or being out in public again. But seeing as the big emphasis this week was on being green, I figured I'd just send you over there to read it for yourself. And I will move on to the Indie Roundup, where we're having more matches, guys. More matches.
Yeah. It's exciting time.
It's happening. It's coming back.
Yeah. So IWRG, who probably never stopped having matches,
going back. So are we officially acknowledging IWRG again? Is this canon?
It's canon. We are able to acknowledge them.
Yes. Welcome back, IWRG.
I'm still not happy with your choices, but you're not breaking the law anymore. So welcome back. They did have another event. I have some results here that I grabbed from Cubs Fan, but they are also available on Lucha Central. And so I'm going to skip ahead to the secondary main event and the main event. There's a bunch of undercard. There were 6 matches total. So match number 5 was Dr. Cerebro, Freelance, and Puma de Oro versus Dynamic Black, Fly Warrior, and Supernova. Puma de Oro was a last-minute replacement, but Dr. Cerebro, Freelance, and Puma de Oro got the win on this one. For those of you who are familiar with any of these wrestlers, this is kind of the reason it's so high up on the card is this is kind of a crazy must-watch sort of combination of people. There's some good basing and a lot of huge high-flying spots that are going to happen there, and probably more than a few cookie sheets died in this day.
R.I.P. cookie sheets.
You died for my entertainment, and I am so pleased you did.
Thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice.
And then and then match 6, the main event was Abismo Negro Jr., Mamba, I want to make sure I'm not mumbling on this, and Maximo against Aeroboy, Hijo de Abrije, and Jesse Ventura. The team of Abismo Negro Jr., Mamba, and Maximo wound up winning. There was a foul. I didn't get the who fouled who, but it doesn't sound like it's foul, so it wasn't somebody's mask coming off. So, that's just an unpleasant day for somebody. Cubs fan seems to think that they're going to be using this to set up an Abismo Negro Abrije mask match. So I'm on board for this. We were talking a bit about how apuestas are really the big deal. We've talked about it recently. Conan was talking about it. Like, these are actually bigger than title matches in Mexico. So if that's what they're building to, I'm here for that. And those are kind of both iconic masks. So the fans are going to be very emotionally invested in this one. And it could be a very hot crowd. So definitely keep your ears open for this one. And then we had chaos in Estadio de Béisbol Monterrey, which I mentioned a few weeks ago on the road back. They actually had the event. They also had 6 matches. I'm going over all 6 on this. There are a lot more names that people will recognize from top to bottom on this because Chaos is, they're kind of doing this like a super indie promotion here in the United States, for those that are familiar with that, where you just grab a whole bunch of really big name recognizable people and throw them into matches, and hopefully something exciting happens, and it usually does. So match 1, we had Commander, Charo Negro, Villano 3 Jr., Toxin, and Dinamico. And Commander, who, if you remember, we talked about him, he became a meme a while back for doing absurd things off the top rope, and all of these guys are big flyers. Villano 3 Jr. we've talked about, and Charo Negro, I believe we've talked about. So this was your high-flying indie match opener, but Commander's the one that came out on top, although he didn't get to celebrate very long. He did get attacked after the match by someone not even in the mask, Vasco Jr. So, set a nice tone. And then match 2, we had Kaientai and Lord Byron against Ciclope and Medio Extremo, and then the other team, so it was a 3 tag team match, Galactar and Rico Rodriguez. Kaientai and Lord Byron came out on top on that one. Not entirely surprising to me, since Ciclope and Medio Extremo are technically working in another promotion out of Monterrey, so, they're probably earning their way up the card here. And then match 3, we had Black Widow and Sexy Star. This is not Sexy Dulce, just for those people that are keeping score here. Against Lady Flammer and Reina Dorada. For the Chaos Women's Tag Team Championship. Black Widow and Sexy Star did win this match and are the Women's Tag Team Champions. I didn't see this, and my notes don't have if they were tag team champions going in or not. I thought Flammer and Reina Dorada were, but I could not confirm this. But either way, congratulations. Always nice to see tag team titles being defended or won. We have, then match 4, we had Fabi Apache, Larry Miranda, Toscano against Dulce Canella, Lady Shani, and friend of the show, Mr. Iguana. Bad news, Dusty. Mr. Iguana's team did not win this time.
He was robbed. I demand a recount of the 3 count.
With all 6 of those people, that looked like it was a really great match. I'm sure Mr. Iguana's going to have some highlights on his social soon, so Dusty will have seen it. And for those of you who aren't following Mr. Iguana on social media, why aren't you? He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's got great taste in music. He's always posting great songs in the stories.
It's true. I'm not that you shouldn't follow any of or all of these people, but because we know Mr. Iguana, we know he's always funny on socials. And then we're moving up to the big parts of the card here. So this is the one. This is the one that set the internet on fire, because there's always one. Hijo del Vikingo, Mystices Jr., Octagon Jr. against El Divo, Emperador Azteca, and Hijo del Impostor. The reason this one set everybody on fire is because of the extremely gifable moment where Hijo del Vikingo ran up the ramp, jumped onto the top rope, and then I lost count of how many rotations he did.
I believe it was 630 degrees.
It was something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Landed on his opponent and nobody died.
Yeah. Well, to have the balance and like the momentum and all to do that from the top rope is insane. Like you usually see something like that from the second rope.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also not with a running start.
Yeah. Down the ramp. Yeah.
So yeah, very absurd moment. Appropriately enough, the Hijo del Vikingo, Mystices, and Octagon Jr. won this match. But oh my goodness, even if you only see the 30 seconds that was that moment, that's worth seeing on its own. But there's spots aplenty on this one to watch. It was pretty crazy. Devo was a last-minute replacement for El Dragon, but I really don't think that Devo was the weak link in the team on the team that lost on this particular day. I think Hijo del Vikingo really had a good breakfast that morning and was just really, really feeling champion in that moment. And then we get to our absolute main event with some pretty big names and one name that we probably need to explain again because I think it's been a while. Rey Escorpion, Fresario Jr., and Conan Big. Demonio Inferno, so let me say that again. Demonio Inferno and DMT Azul. So, hopefully listeners of the show are familiar with Rey Escorpion, DMT Azul. We talk about them quite a bit. Fresario Jr. is another big boy that his name has come up quite a bit. And then Conan Big. So just real quick. Conan Big, was he a DJ, Dusty? Is that where he started, or was that, am I making that up?
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, it sounds right to me. I mean, he was some kind of media personality.
Yeah. I knew that he was definitely a media personality. I thought he might have been a DJ first.
I think he was. That sounds right. I couldn't remember if he was a DJ or a dancer, but a DJ sounds better, so.
But you're getting the gist of it. He's a personality in the Monterrey region more than he was a wrestler. But because he's a fan of wrestling, he kind of got involved in a bunch of matches. And because he came as a persona, he got this really bigger than life reputation. Sometimes his matches are more comedy and sometimes they're just straight up brawls, but at this point, he's in a lot of the main event scene in Monterrey. Some people love that and some people hate that. But you can kind of expect it, and you can kind of expect a big crowd reaction, so he's always there. He did not win today. Rey Scorpion won today, and he got the pinfall over Demonio Infernal, and this was technically for the Chaos Heavyweight Championship, but I mean, I don't think anybody cared with those names in there that it was about that. I think they just wanted to see a lot of violence and more dead cookie sheets. And then some people were rooting for Conan Big to either get destroyed really badly or to destroy somebody. So, you know. But that was our big main event in the baseball stadium. I kind of under-mentioned that at the beginning. The Estadio de Baseball means baseball stadium. So, very interesting visuals for the cameras and all that fun stuff. Kind of an outdoor show, but you know, you've got all of the conveniences of a baseball stadium, so you can go grab a hot dog or some Mexican street food, more likely, and have a great old time. I would have loved to have been there for this one, but Monterrey is still a little far for me to get, and I don't think that I could get back across the border from Mexico now. That's our indie roundup. I wanted to go over the whole Chaos event. Again, I want to point out that we're building up, but I'm intentionally trying to keep time open for any last minute submissions. So any week, please, if you wrestler, promoter, fan, if you have something that you think you want me to talk about or look at at the very least, send it my way. We'll do socials at the end of the show. And then we'll be doing this spot moving forward. It'll probably be the bigger deal than the road back to shows once we're done anticipating live crowds again. So, please send me the matches and send me your favorite. Tell me who your favorites are so I can go look them up myself. I'm willing to do the legwork too. All right.
Well, I actually want to do a plug because this will lead into something we'll get into a little bit later on the show. But speaking of independent talent, we are going to have a clip later on in the show of a interview that we did last week with one of wrestling's biggest independent stars, one of Lucha Libre's most currently well-known stars, someone who definitely has had maybe more of a polarizing fan base or I guess what's the best way to explain it, but he definitely is a wrestler who you have heard of, who you have seen in more ways than one. So make sure you stay tuned towards later on in the show where we will let you know who our interview was with and a clip of that said interview. It is also going to be released separately from this podcast, so you are going to be able to listen to it on the Lucha Central Podcast Network, all the same ways that you listen to this show. But stay tuned so that way you get the info on who our most recent interview was with. That's just all the teasers I'm going to do for now. But up next, we are going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass Mats and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez, as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
A huge thank you to Denise Salcedo, who lets us know each and every week what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Make sure to check her out on Lucha Central's YouTube page. You can find a lot of the interviews that she's done for her channel, Instinct Culture, and of course on behalf of luchacentral.com. Up next, Dusty is going to share with us some AAA news.
Yeah, we had some small but interesting news regarding AAA this week. If you recall, back when Lucha Underground was created, it was a joint project between AAA and an American entity for the purposes of the program, and it was called Lucha Libre FMV, FMV standing for Factory Made Ventures. And when the El Rey network closed, and they were doing accounting, Lucha Libre FMV discovered they technically owned all the international rights to AAA's product and their trademarks. So this led to AAA only being available in Mexico, and that's how things have been going for about 6 months now.
The worst 6 months.
Yes. It's been a mess. But Lucha Libre FMV, like the end is near. Lucha Libre FMV currently has until June 30th to either serve AAA with the paperwork or file a reason why they haven't served AAA with the paperwork to the judge that's overseeing the case. AAA could actually win a surprise judgment here, like where they'll just win if nothing happens. But the judge could just as easily decide that COVID is a valid reason, nobody's been served yet, and there's no bonus for filing early, so don't expect anything before the 30th. But, we'll find out, hopefully. But it opens up an interesting series of possibilities, but pretty much none of them will open up the possibility of official channels for seeing Verano de Escándalo legitimately in the U.S., and this may affect our Triple Mania viewing chances as well. And speaking of Triple Mania, if they hold firm on the date of August 14th and Mexico City stays green, which currently seems a little unlikely but still rather possible, so, we'll see. But they would be going head-to-head with a New Japan pay-per-view that will air on both New Japan World and Fight TV that features a card with Jon Moxley, Jay White, Lio Rush, and more. So I think it's very likely we could see the date changed at this time. It's looking a little hazy for a Triple Mania date, but there is a press conference this coming Monday, July the 28th, to run down the rest of the details for Triple Mania. And so check back next week for the news and info. We'll have everything they covered at the press event. And don't forget that next Saturday, July the 3rd, is Verano de Escándalo, featuring Lady Shani versus Diana Perazzo in her AAA debut. So we'll have all those results. Hopefully they'll have some information on that at the press conference on Monday. So we'll have that too. Anything we find out, we will have that for you next week.
So I just want to jump in real quick since we went back to Mexico City staying green. Politically, the pundits wanted to stay green despite the fact that the conditions that normally would dictate backsliding to yellow might be happening. So there's two sides on this. We will see who wins out, but it's much like here in the States, it sounds like travel and tourism is winning this war, and they're just going to assume that people are vaccinated and not continue backsliding the colors. But that could change any time now.
I was actually speaking with a luchador recently who'd done some work in America, and they were saying that you would be surprised how easy it is to get a shot here, coming into the States, so that a lot of them have actually had the ability, have been vaccinated because they've been here. Yeah. So
That's
hopefully, it keeps things going and keeps them healthy enough for the show. So even if the crowds aren't huge, hopefully we still get Triple Mania. It'll be really exciting.
Indeed. Well, Dusty, do you mind taking us into the world of AEW this week on Elevation, Dark, and Dynamite?
Yes. First up on Mondays, we have Dark Elevation. And our first highlight match was Penta El Zero Miedo and Eddie Kingston defeating Rey Morales and Fuego del Sol. And this was such a good match. I've mentioned before that I'm a big fan of the pairing of Eddie Kingston and Penta, and this match was no exception. It was largely a squash match, but it had some interesting offensive flurry from Fuego. He gave Eddie Kingston what really looked like a black eye. There was a wild, stiff kick. Looked like it gave Eddie a black eye, but it didn't take him out of commission. It just made him even more motivated and mad. Like extra mad Eddie Kingston is scary, like King Kong level scary. So this was cool. I loved the the pairing of Eddie and Penta. This is a nice view of them on Dark Elevation. It helps elevate them, no pun intended, and it improves their tag team record. So hopefully we get to see some more of them as an actual tag team in the future. They were tied together last year during the pandemic as part of Eddie Kingston's family, and they had the thing with Penta being his best friend. So it feels natural having them together. I love their dynamic. Hopefully Mox stays out on paternity leave for a while. When Renee had her baby, John Moxley went on paternity leave. Phoenix is injured, so we got this tag team, and I am here for it. And then our main event on Elevation was Matt Sydal defeating Jack Evans, and these two just have the most incredible chemistry together in the ring. They just had a fantastic match where they constantly one-upped each other in a series of fantastic spots. It's exactly what you'd imagine when somebody says Jack Evans versus Matt Sydal. Paul White, formerly known as Big Show, on commentary mentioned that these guys were both in Dragon Gate, Japan, which was interesting and unexpected from Paul White. But they were also on our fearless leader, Kevin Kleinrock's MTV project Wrestling Society X. They were on the first episode with a match against each other. So, it's kind of cool to see them wrestling each other after all this time. And after trading roll-ups for a pair of 2 counts, Matt Sydal hit a jumping knee, then a question mark kick. He rolled that to a lightning spiral, and Matt Sydal wins with a 3 count. He now has a record of 9-3, while Jack Evans has an abysmal 1-7 record. Tuesday night, we had Dark. Brian Cage, 9-2 record, defeated Chandler Hopkins with an 0-3 record. And this wasn't so much about what was happening in the ring for me, but the development and tension between FTW champion Brian Cage and Team Taz, but especially with Pretty Ricky Starks on commentary. Cage drew out Hopkins in a series of moves instead of just finishing him with brute strength. And that pissed Taz off on commentary. That was pretty cool. Cage hits the Whippin' X, picks up the win in 3 minutes and 59 seconds before chasing Ricky Starks backstage and behind the curtain. And Diamante, our next match, was Diamante with the 22-14 record, defeating Ashley D'Amboise, who is 0-4. I really like Ashley D'Amboise, and I felt bad for her knowing that Diamante would not be holding back. And I was right. Diamante is getting better every week. Her eyes and facial expressions, like when she comes out with that bandana, her eyes are so intense, and she just got, everything is top notch. Her submission game is unparalleled. She picked up the victory in just 64 seconds before an immediate post-win beatdown, and then made the ref raise her hand afterwards. It was incredible. This is the Diamante I want. Like, she looks so tough and dominant, and they are building her up to something. I hope it's a feud maybe with Thunder Rosa. We'll see what happens, but I am very excited. And that leads us into Dynamite, where we had Penta, Eddie Kingston, and Frankie Kazarian against the Good Brothers and Matt Jackson. We get a quick moment early in the show, and Penta, Eddie Kingston, and the Elite Hunter Kazarian are ready. Kazarian dropped a Bible verse, and Eddie said that the Elite needed to pray to their God to take their souls because their asses belong to him. And Penta said, Cero Miedo. And as for the match itself, these Young Bucks matches are getting more and more tiresome. Like, they should just show up on Dark or Elevation to raise their numbers if that's something they want, instead of doing it in the main event of Dynamite. It would make more sense of them being unbeatable because it is defying any belief at this point. But I do have to say, I loved the dynamic between Gallows and Kingston and the dynamic between Penta and Machine Gun Anderson. I would really like to see a tag team match between these guys. The size and styles were just so cool together, but only if we can leave the Elite and or the Bucks out of the equation. Like, it's not exciting with them in the match right now. And I say that as somebody that was a Young Bucks fan. Like, it's just stale at this point for me. And then we also had Andrade with an interview with Jim Ross. He looked like $1 million. I thought Jim Ross was an interesting choice, but Brendan and I discussed it earlier this week, and that seems to be where they're going with Jim Ross. You know, like, that's part of his deal, is he interviews the big stars, and we still don't have a feel for what Andrade's going to do or going to be. We haven't had much character development. There hasn't been a match announced yet. He didn't have any music on his debut, and so it left me with more questions than answers, and not in a good way. Confused questions, not anticipatory questions. So, again, I mean, it feels like AEW just doesn't know what they're doing with Andrade. I don't know if it... Brendan and I have talked about this. There's he may have a certain number of dates contracted, and to get that pay from the TV contract, he may be appearing on television, but it's making it feel forced and directionless, like a ship without a rudder. They just don't seem to have anything for him. There's been things that make him feel vaguely Rudo, vaguely heel, but they still haven't affirmed that aside from placing him with Vicky. And that was also a strange pairing, and it's more to get Vicky over as a manager than to get Andrade over, because she's using him for clout, and it's a whole thing that's just very strange.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it just seems like, at first it made sense if he was going to be on to help co-promote, co-brand the anticipated Triple Mania fight. But it seems like they're shifting all of that attention to Jungle Boy, and he's kind of floating around. And unless he ends up having an actual program with somebody in the meantime, you're right. It's good. The placement feels odd. The purpose feels kind of out of place. There doesn't seem to be a clear direction. And you're right. There is no clear line, and there doesn't always have to be between, say, a rudo and a técnico. But in this case, you know, it's already kind of obvious that there is a fan base that isn't familiar with him. You just want to know, you know, whether you should either have a true direction for him, whether it's in personality or character, or who he's facing. And I feel like we have neither right now.
So I do want to point out that they are listening to some level of criticism because they're building the Jungle Boy match to your point that it is undermining Andrade's presence. I'm definitely not going to argue that. It totally is. But they've been criticized for having matches on these special Saturday shows or on the week things that are supposed to be a big deal, but they don't really do anything with it. And he won the whatever they call their Royal Rumble thing.
The Casino Battle Royal.
Yeah, to get this spot. So in fairness, they should be building to him. And Andrade should be in the spot after that. Now, there's a couple interesting things they could do. Most likely, it's just going to be Jungle Boy doesn't win, and then we start looking ahead to whoever's going to be next. But so what I think I said this on the air. I can't remember if I said this on the air or during one of my rants. What they should have been doing is, instead of these interviews and all of that, having vignettes, just having him sit in that awesome looking stage he had for Triple Mania at the Triple Mania debut, sipping his expensive booze, wearing his expensive clothes, and talking about how awesome he is. Whether it's in a face manner or in a heel manner, I'm not sure, because we don't know what they want to do with this character. But then you have this sense of anticipation that he's going to be there, and you could even bring him, then trot him out in front of the crowd after the Jungle Boy match, right? You are correct that it seems directionless. It seems very directionless to me. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're not doing these much more obvious ideas makes me wonder if they ever really had a plan, or if so we know now that the reason Andrade didn't debut sooner was because of contract negotiations. But what we don't know is what they decided. And
that's true.
So we don't know if he's going to be the next big hot thing, and that's why they're trying to square peg round hole this thing, or if they just want to get him dates like Dusty and I were talking about at that point. It's very interesting situation. I'm more faithful that the AEW group will do something interesting with him than any time, because the regular listeners of the show will notice we had a very low expectation for WWE's use of him.
It's true.
Well, I think AEW was just built upon, trying to learn from the mistakes of previous promotions, both WWE and WCW. Even Tony Khan came out just recently saying that they've been trying to learn from the mistakes of WCW. But, for a company that prides itself on being different, on learning from mistakes, on trying to elevate new stars, they can easily fall into the same traps that other companies have, like you've been saying, Brendan, and maybe they don't really know what to do with him, or maybe the execution of what they're trying to do long term isn't connecting, and so they have to pivot quickly, or they stick to their guns and see if the long game plays out. I'm not sure, but I think that's one of the things that AEW is so open about, but that does leave them open for criticism when you say you try to do something different or you try and learn, but yet you're kind of doing the same things that other companies have done. And, is Andrade going to be better off? Is this going to be a step in the right direction? So far, it feels like no.
Yeah,
Yes.
true.
I think we will get a much clearer picture after Saturday. That's what I'm still holding my breath on, because whether Jungle Boy wins or loses, they need to move ahead with him, and if they do move ahead with him, either Saturday or Wednesday, we will have a clearer idea of what they're doing. This is my pure fantasy booking. I'm just going to say it now, so that way, if the very off chance something like this even remotely happens, I can do a happy dance. Jungle Boy wins on Saturday, and Andrade comes out and challenges him because he doesn't care about Kenny Omega. He cares about the gold.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I mean, and nobody would expect, nobody is going to expect a long reign from Jungle Boy. So it puts people in unexpected waters. They have no idea if the new megastar is going to be the one that wins that, or if Jungle Boy is going to be the next upset king, like, a la Giant Killer Rey Mysterio. So
yeah,
they could do something very interesting on Saturday. I'm not overly optimistic that they will, because Kenny Omega's got a lot of storyline that's connected not just to AEW right now, but they very well could.
Well, the results for AEW shows are available on luchacentral.com. So if you missed anything, make sure you go there. Up next, we're going to take you through this week in NXT, and the Lucha focus is in the women's division this week. First, we're going to start off with a tag match. Zoe Stark and Io Shirai teaming up to face Aaliyah and Jessie Kamea from the Robert Stone brand. Prior to this match, Io Shirai and Zoe Stark had a encounter backstage where they agreed to partner out of, necessity, but don't really like each other. And so that is something that I think we're going to see carry through over the next few weeks or even into a feud. But the match itself was fairly quick. I mean, you have Io Shirai, one of the best women's wrestlers in the entire world. And first she was in the ring with Aaliyah, which Aaliyah has grown leaps and bounds over the years, but there's nothing that you can do to stop Io Shirai. They did find an opening when Zoe Stark tagged in, with Zoe being a little bit less experienced, but still fantastic and amazing in her own right. And Io Shirai won this match for her team with the moonsault. During the match, we saw Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell come out, the NXT women's tag team champions. And after the match, we had Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez come out and tell Io Shirai and Zoe Stark that they weren't going to pass them up for a title shot. They need to get in the back of the line. Then that brought out Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, and eventually everyone just attacked each other. A melee happened until new NXT enforcer Samoa Joe had to come out and help break up the action. And it was later announced that we are going to have a tag team triple threat match next week to determine a new number one contenders for the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships. Zoe Stark and Io Shirai versus Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai versus Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, with the winner facing the way at the Great American Bash. So Raquel Gonzalez has taken some time away from defending her title, trying to get a second to become Two Belts Gonzalez.
Oh, please, wrestling gods, make it happen.
Raquel Gonzalez for all the belts. Up next, though, we did see Frankie Monet in action again. She was going to, I forget exactly how she described it, but an encore presentation of her world premiere, I believe is how she framed it, against Elektra Lopez. And, Elektra had some good offense, but really Frankie paid no mind to Elektra, really couldn't care less. And eventually Elektra got a little bit of an upper hand, was really motivated Frankie to, step up her game. She won the match by hitting the Glam Slam, And, Frankie is definitely a pot stirrer. Prior to that, she was backstage with Aaliyah and Jessica Mea, kind of planting some seeds of doubt within the Robert Stone brand. We've seen her backstage with multiple women in the division, kind of just planting seeds, kind of stirring and starting up trouble. So they are building up Frankie Monet to, just to be a contender in the women's division, but also someone who, is going to get in some situations, is going to get in some trouble, is going to stir the pot. And, I think especially for Aaliyah and Jessica Mea, who are kind of a little bit lower on the priority list, it's great to have, some kind of storyline in it. But it does seem like right now the focus, at least in the immediate future, is going to be on the NXT Women's Tag Team division and less on the Women's Championship division. But who knows that between all of these matches happening, we may have a new number one contender come out of this. I just want to get your quick thoughts on this, gentlemen, as far as, the shift, at least this week, being on the NXT Women's Tag Team division.
Well, before I talk about any of that, I wanted to also throw out that I saw, in the highlights I saw of Frankie Monet's match, she showed some MMA skills this time too, which is, she's continuing to evolve her skill set. That's not something we saw as much, which means that long-term fans of Taya Valkyrie have lots more reasons to look forward to her being in this division, because she is growing leaps and bounds by being in the Performance Center from her already high mark. So let's not be. I'm not going to mince words on that. She was already one of the best.
You're right. The key to survival is evolution. To be adaptable, especially in WWE. You need to be able to show how you can evolve, change, morph at a moment's notice. And still seeing Taya Valkyrie. I mean, Frankie Monet is a now shade of Taya Valkyrie. A lot of her movesets, La Güera Loca, is something that she continues to refer to herself. Her lucha libre background is still heavily talked about during commentary. Her gear, her look, her flamboyant, all of it is still there. The name change, I think people have just gotten used to finally, because they're still seeing that it's still Taya Valkyrie, but like you're mentioning, Brendan, it's now a level up. She is now leveling up, which is, exactly why I know for me, I wanted to see her in NXT.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the shift over to the tag division, when you've got a women's division as deep in talent as NXT, and you're fighting for spots on takeovers, I wanted to say pay-per-views, but I guess they're going to be a thing of the past thanks to the Peacock. You might as well. You've got enough people to do it. There was recently discussion about other promotions and the and trios championships, and historians mentioned that classically the reason that trios championships didn't happen in American promotions is because you only had like 20 people total on the roster, which includes your world champ and your tag team champs, so you just don't have the depth to do it. But that is not a problem NXT has with the women's tag division. So, as much as I would love to see Two Belts Gonzalez, I feel that that team is really there to add legitimacy to one of the other two teams winning and making, because we are almost definitely going to see a heavyweight championship defense at the Great American Bash, and I'm not so secretly hoping it's Frankie Monet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Yes. Well, make sure that you check out the results for NXT on luchacentral.com. They're going to shift again, so not so much in the World Championship picture with Karrion Kross this week. Seems like, though, Samoa Joe keeps getting in his way, and y'all just teasing Samoa Joe versus Karrion Kross, which is just not fair. Like, either if you're not going to do it, then why are you teasing it? I'm just like, shut up and take my money. Give me Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe, but, we just calm down, Miranda. Calm down. Everything's going to be fine.
There is some Karrion Kross news this week. Were you going to talk about that?
No, go ahead and jump into that. Oh, yes. Yes. Actually, now I remember, and I don't know if that's more for the Well, we're actually going to mention it in WWE.
Okay.
Because,
Okay.
you know, I'll tag team with Dusty on that one a little bit later on.
Spoiler alert. There's
Yes.
some bonus content in the WWE. So if you normally skip it because Raw sucks, maybe listen to the WWE segment this week.
Indeed. But I am going to jump over to you, Brendan, because we have some news in Ring of Honor, including the Survival of the Fittest tournament.
Yeah, so we did have more updates in Survival of the Fittest. This was our other Lucha content. We had Bandito this week against Bateman. And as people who are familiar with these wrestlers will know, the whole story of the match is kind of a styles clash. Bateman is kind of a scary brawler. He is very Lucha trained, by the way. People who are unaware of this. He
California.
He performed at both Expo Luchas. He's worked with all of the talent. I don't know which one of the Lucha schools he teaches at the top of my head, but he teaches, I remember when I was researching someone else, he was one of the instructors at one of the Lucha-based schools. So he's got the skill set there. And you can see a little bit of that creeping through here, because he made Bandito look like a star. And I had fun watching this one. Bandito did come out on top on this one. He advances to Survival of the Fittest, so we have not one, but two luchadors of the three that were involved in this tournament advancing to the next round. So we're in a good place for that. The good/bad news is that it's Bandito and Flamita, which means that they're probably neither one of them's probably going to win. They're probably going to kind of attack each other, which also is good news because those two wrestling each other is just awesome. So, that's our Survival of the Fittest. We also had, a really exciting triple threat main event for the television title. Dragon Lee attempting to win back his television title that technically he never lost. We had Dragon Lee against Hot Sauce Tracy Williams and Tony Deppen. And this one got interesting. At first I was afraid it was going to suffer from, this match should be on a pay-per-view syndrome like the tag team match we had last week. And it did, but it didn't because of the way that it finished. So you still got a lot of good solid action. Clearly they were holding back a little bit to make you hungry for a little bit more, which is great because what's happening now, what happened at the end of the match and the build that they're doing is going to pay off with a bigger, higher profile match where everybody involved can go a little more crazy. Hot Sauce was incapacitated. I believe it was from a low blow or cheap shot or something of that. Maybe it was just a really good move. I don't remember anymore because of what happened next. Tony Deppen basically falls on him for the cover. Dragon Lee runs over like he's going to break up the whole thing, stops, and just waits for the 3 count to happen. So Tony Deppen retains the title, and then Hot Sauce Williams takes the fall, and then Kenny King comes out and says, this was plan B. Plan A obviously is win the title. Plan B is if we're going to lose, let someone else take the pinfall. Mm-hmm. So, their strategy seems to be to have, the Foundation drop down in the rankings so that they can have a one-on-one match with Dragon Lee and Tony Deppen. And they challenged for the next pay-per-view. So we have to just tune in and see this next week if the powers that be, whoever the matchmakers are at ROH, are going to make that match for the pay-per-view, or if they're going to do this as a rematch. Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say that it was confirmed 2 days ago on Ring of Honor social media that the first title match for Best in the World on July 11th will be Tony Deppen defending the television championship against Dragon Lee.
I did miss that. Thank you.
Yep.
So there you go. We're getting it. We're getting it on the pay-per-view. We're getting Tony Deppen and Dragon Lee. It's going to be a barn burner. Earlier in the year, I reported on Tony Deppen being at the America versus Mexico branded show, and he really gets lucha. I could see that in that match. So if you're going to give him 20 minutes on a pay-per-view against one of the best luchadors in the world right now, this is going to be a match to watch. So that's our ROH update. It's really exciting news this week. Definitely. As always, their matches are for the week will be up for free. So by the time this episode goes up, you'll only have a day left to catch it. But do try to catch this week's episode for free. It's well worth the watch.
We're going to now take it to Dusty, who gives us This Week in Lucha Libre History.
Yeah, that's right. Now it's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera for information, birth dates, anniversaries, matches of the day, amazing videos, and even more. And it's all about Lucha Libre, and that's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week we chose the match of the day for June 27th, Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko at WCW Monday Nitro. This was Rey Mysterio's very first appearance on WCW Nitro, and it slightly predates the formation of the NWO by a few weeks, so this was actually very early in the Cruiserweight era for WCW. This was a rematch from the Great American Bash pay-per-view that had taken place 2 weeks before, and once again the WCW Cruiserweight title was on the line, which Dean would eventually hold for 66 days before later dropping it to Rey Mysterio on Nitro 3 weeks after this match, the night after the famous Bash on the Beach 1996 pay-per-view. This was only the second match ever between Rey and Dean, and while it's not full of the same excitement and offensive flurries as some of their later matches in the Cruiserweight division, it is a well-paced and interesting match, and it is an excellent example of the early WCW Cruiserweight era. What did you think of it, Brendan?
Oh man, so I don't know if I've mentioned it on the air recently. I know I did on a different podcast, but I was the guy that watched these matches. I'm the one that stayed in the room while other people went to get snacks or hit the bathroom or whatever else. And I do not regret it because of matches like this.
Yes.
This was a 10-minute solid match, and it was probably the best 10 minutes of wrestling that was on that episode that night. Especially considering, as Destiny mentioned, the placement right next to the major story angle that is on the verge of happening. I remember they tended to, the wrestling kind of went more tame right leading into that so that they could have a bigger explosion when there was a lot more emotion behind it. So, I mean, it's a technical masterpiece. Like, you have two guys working together to make a really amazing match. I don't want to say that Rey was at the height of his career because he really reached major heights when he went to WWF, but I mean he was not the young kid we saw in ECW that was, willing to crash and burn. He knew what he was doing by this point. He knew how to manipulate a crowd. He knew how to do solid technical moves and transition. And chain wrestling, Dean Malenko and chain wrestling, right?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Reach.
All right, Miranda, before I just keep ranting.
No, I just, as soon as you said Dean Malenko and chain wrestling, I was like, yes. That is the truest statement I've heard literally all day today. And you know what, too? I had forgotten about his moniker, the Iceman, and how they kept, really like that very firm, strong, look on his face, the way that he approached his matches, but yet how quickly and smoothly he could work. It was almost like a contradiction, but it worked so well, and it almost sucks. It was like, oh man, I wonder what if Dean Malenko could have gotten more further with that kind of gimmick. And it wasn't maybe the place on WCW because they were more drawn to personalities, but Yeah, I mean, I think that this match, as both of you stated, a very, very solid 10 minutes. And the crowd was getting into it, especially with the near falls. You had already seen people in the crowd with Rey Mysterio masks, which then we'll see, for 20 plus years. And Tony Schiavone, to his credit, really trying to get fans engaged in the match. It was hard with Bobby Heenan, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby's kept going all these different directions, and he had him. No, he didn't. Not that time.
Made you miss Mike today.
Yeah. He mentioned Mike Tenay, he just wasn't there.
Yeah.
He just wasn't there. Why are you teasing me with Mike Tenay? He's not there. But, I think that this was something that I think just very undervalued at the time.
It was.
The things that WCW did so well. But history really just remembers, the big moments, the big names, and even commentary, kind of plays that up that, the match in front of you wasn't as important as what was the bigger storylines happening. But it was one of the best things that WCW did, and giving them that showcase, that airtime, and also the ability to be in front of such a live crowd. It really, the luchadors in the cruiserweight division really did resonate with the crowds. You saw it in the merchandise and in the masks and in the shirts and in the posters. So eventually, they built up. But I think that this, was just a very clean, straightforward match. And sometimes that's just what you want. For 10 minutes, it went by so smoothly and so easily that you don't even realize. It literally felt like a few minutes. And I think that now we just get so much on TV, whether it's, wacky gimmicks and interferences and whatnot, that, sometimes it feels like you lose the art of just a solid, straightforward match.
It feels more insulting to us as the viewer.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. I do have to, since you brought it up, and I don't know if we're going to be able to swing back around for this later, this week. The Iceman gimmick was killed by another luchador. Chris Jericho is the one that killed the Iceman gimmick. So, mad but not mad. Right? So, for those who didn't live through that, Chris Jericho, as you might know, tends to make fun of the people he's wrestling against. And he kept referring to Dean Malenko as boring because of that Iceman expression. And that brought out the anger in Dean Malenko, and we got to see a slightly different edge to him, and then we never went back to the Iceman after that feud was over. So, Chris Jericho, you took away a really interesting gimmick by being a super interesting personality. I don't know if I love you or hate you for that. And I know you're listening to the show, because all the big names listen to the show.
They all do.
Yeah, they're huge fans.
Huge fans. Well, that was this week in Lucha Libre history. As Desi mentioned, you could check out luchacentral.com for this day in Lucha Libre history, where you have events, videos of matches, and so much more on that website. Now we come to the part of the show where we are able to reveal the interview that we conducted just last week with a very well-known wrestler, luchador, someone that you have seen on your television screens or phone screens very, very recently, and someone who, for some may consider kind of a polarizing figure, and that is El Rudo de las Chicas, Sam Adonis himself. You've seen him in CMLL, AAA, NWA, independents all over the United States and Mexico. Myself, Dusty, and Brendan had the honor and pleasure of interviewing Sam Adonis for the show, and it was really insightful to get to know more about his background. And we did talk to him about, what it was like to have your name plastered all over the news for maybe some not so great reasons, related to his character in Mexico being very pro-Trump, very political. And it just fascinating. But before I jump in too much, gentlemen, I want to get your thoughts on the interview. Brendan, why don't you start first?
I really enjoyed that he was so very well educated, and I made reference to talking about the WCW Cruiserweight era. He has a story in there talking about watching the Cruiserweights too. is from a wrestling family. They appreciated that. If we had watched this match with Sam, we would have gotten some amazing insight on it. But as it is, that was a very fascinating part of the interview as well.
Yeah, it really was. I enjoyed where he talked about his time in the CMLL, like the training classes, and how no matter who you are, no matter where you are on the card, you are expected to show up for class. And your
every Wednesday.
Yeah, your attitude there and how hard you try, at least in Sam's opinion, really affected your placement on the card. And he thought that it was his willingness to get in there and do it, and it was just very motivating in a way, like putting in the work to get the results. And I really enjoyed that from somebody like Sam. That's incredible.
Well, yeah, and to stress this, I'm not going to give away too much from the interview on this, but I mentioned already, he comes from a wrestling family, so he could have had an easier road if he wanted to, and that's part of the story that he tells.
Yeah. So everyone, make sure you listen to our interview with Sam Adonis. We are going to now include a little clip from our interview with Sam right here.
To that respect for classic lucha, guys like Atlantis and Blue Panther, Negro Casas, they wanted to work with me because I was a professional and I respected their position. So I got invited, and when I could not believe when Paco Alonso told me I was having a hair match, it was just unbelievable. And then to win that in Arena Mexico, in front of 10,000 people, it's just, to this day, when I'm in Mexico City, that's what people bring up. Oh, I was there when you beat Blue Panther. Oh, I saw that. You're the guy that beat Blue Panther for his hair. And I still think, as Americans and even Mexican Americans, I don't think you can really grasp how big an apuesta is. That's, that's literally like, almost like a Super Bowl. Each apuesta is a part of history. Whether you watch it or not, it happens. It's there. It's statistically written down in the record books. So to receive that opportunity was huge, and that basically made me a made man overnight.
It's incredible.
Yeah, you went from being on, being on the cards to being on every card and being in a good spot.
Yeah,
you were talking about Wednesday practices. Oh, go ahead.
You're cutting out there. Can you repeat that last thing again? I'm sorry.
Oh. I was mostly putting over how well you were doing on the card after that. Basically saying that you went from being, in a good spot on most shows to being in a good spot on every show. And I almost got tired of seeing you on my screen, but not quite.
It almost, I was there for probably a year before the apuesta, before I beat Blue Panther. And again, this was going back to just proving to CMLL that I belonged there. I had to train every Wednesday for a year. I had to perform and show them, because again, there's 60 wrestlers running around Arena Mexico, some guys shooting on each other and just, it's the Wild West as far as that goes, and to have a code of conduct that, that I proved myself and I earned that opportunity. And that was almost like a very well kept secret. Because they knew they had something here. They knew they had a license to print money in this American, that gets heat and sells tickets. And they were just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger. So we tuned it up a little bit with Blue Panther and Sam Adonis. And I shit you not, there was not one professional wrestling fan in the country of Mexico that thought I was going to beat Blue Panther.
I think that was a huge surprise.
Yep.
One.
I did not see that coming either. Yeah.
Well, that was a bit of the swerve. And again, that comes back. I'm sure we'll bring it up later with the Negro Casas situation. That was the swerve that really got, it made me a made man. Because they know, a lot of times some American comes to Mexico, loses their hair and goes away. That's kind of what they were being taught. That's kind of what they're spoon fed all of these years. So when I was able to do that and beat him, it absolutely blew everybody's mind. And that, for all intents and purposes, was the beginning of a push. You know, they knew the results that were going to happen. They knew what they'd get out of me afterwards. And, you know, from then on, I mean, we were doing hot business. Every small town, you know, because again, Mexico is a lot different to Japan as far as everything that happens in Japan is recorded, documented, and there's pictures. I've been on shows in Mexico with 15,000 people in a soccer stadium that there's no recollection of these things ever happening. So we were doing shows all over the country. Myself, Blue Panther, we'd have rematches. And then when we really started to tune up with Negro Casas, we were doing big shows all over the country, selling tickets, working with Ultimo Guerrero and Caristico, big stars. I was a main event guy, and it was a proven product and a proven entity. So much so that in the end, when I had my apuesta with Negro Casas, there wasn't one wrestling fan in Mexico that thought Casas was going to beat me, because they've seen the way things go. You know, they're spoon-fed it, kind of like, you know, WWE fans know a lot about WWE. Once I beat Panther, they know, okay, Negro loses his hair all the time. He lost it last week. You know, he's going to lose his hair to Adonis because Adonis is hot, and they're going to, you know, build him to Ultimo Guerrero or something like that. You know, and that kind of sucked some wind out of my sails. But, you know, again, it was a really cool opportunity.
So that is the clip, just a little teaser of our interview with professional wrestling and Lucha Libre Estrella, Sam Adonis. Make sure you listen to the full interview, which is going to be available on luchacentral.com and all major podcast streaming platforms. Again, Google, iTunes, Spotify, Podbase, Speaker, all of that. That interview is going to be there. Not a long interview, so it's not going to take too much time, but you get to learn a lot about Sam as far as, you know, all the time that he's wrestled in Mexico. Again, we do talk about kind of the publicity he got with his character in Mexico, and much, much more. So make sure you check it out on luchacentral.com. But you know what? There is much, much more than that on luchacentral.com. Brendan, can you let our listeners know what they can find on luchacentral.com?
Absolutely. I mean, here we go again. If you're listening to this and you haven't been to luchacentral.com, it really, really is time to do it. That Sam Adonis interview is just the tip of the iceberg. Luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area. Find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. Happy birthday again, Jerry. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives and all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And here we go. This is the kicker that I love every week. It's free.
Free.
You
Wow.
cannot beat that price, ever. LuchaCentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Speaking of things you can find on luchacentral.com, the results for this week's SmackDown and Raw. But you know what? We're going to fancy it up for you, and we're going to have Dusty share some Lucha Libre content we had this week on WWE.
Yeah, first up we had Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio. They had their Hell in a Cell match moved to SmackDown, allegedly in an attempt to pump up the ratings, which still didn't help them crack 2 million viewers, and that was mostly due to a lack of notice and a lack of build towards the match happening on SmackDown. It gave them their highest rating of the quarter, but the quarter only started 3 weeks ago. So, I mean, like, come on. If I had to guess, I would say that this may have been an experiment to see how a surprise match announcement on Twitter and social media affects ratings compared to building towards the match on TV. You know, we're still trying to figure out that mythical involvement between social media and the actual product. And so, and maybe it was as simple as they just didn't want to show Ray losing on Father's Day, you know, when it was about his son. But yeah, I don't know. Early in the show, we get a promo from Ray about how badly it hurt him inside to see Roman throw Dominic over the top rope like that last week, and he demands that Roman come down to the ring and accept the match in person. The cage over the ring drops down, and Roman steps out to the ramp. Roman says that they don't have to do it this way, and he doesn't want to hurt Rey. But what he did to Dominic last week was PG compared to what he's going to do to Rey tonight. And he's only going to ask, oh, so good. And he says he's only going to ask one time if Rey is sure he wants this. And Rey claims he's never been more ready, and now we officially have the first Hell in a Cell match to ever air on free network TV. And the match itself was so good. Like, this was a great match. Rey getting the lion's share of early offense, including hitting Roman with a chair, and then spraying and hitting Roman with a fire extinguisher, and then he just bumped his ass off for Roman. There was a very memorable spot where Roman tossed Rey into the cell wall that harkened back to when Kevin Nash tossed Rey into a backstage trailer during the famous NWO beatdown, 96.
Yeah.
Yep.
Paul Heyman was outside acting like he'd just seen Rey Mysterio get murdered. It was incredible. Like, oh, so good. Roman wins with a guillotine choke, making Rey tap out. Like, there's something even better about that for the storyline than getting the 3 count. And aside from the spot of Rey being tossed like a dart, I really didn't see the need for a stipulation, as it just didn't feel worthy of the Hell in the Cell, or the gimmick. I'm not sure what you'd call that, but it just didn't feel like a Hell in the Cell necessity. But I do hope we see another pay-per-view match between these two in the future, because who would have thunk it, but Roman and Rey have like an incredible chemistry and dynamic in the ring. It's just excellent. And you can see the mutual respect between them in their interactions. Like, Rey doesn't move like this for everybody, but Roman doesn't let that many people get in offense. So it was really unique and a special and cool pairing to see. This was an incredible match for free TV. I wish I could have seen it at the pay-per-view, but it was excellent on SmackDown. Highly, highly recommend this match.
It was the best pay-per-view match. I'm just going to go on record and say that.
Yeah, it would have been the match of the night if they went ahead and held it on Sunday, but
low bar.
Yeah. And that's very nice. But also, as Brendan and Miranda alluded to earlier on the show, we had Karrion Kross on main event this week, but without Scarlett. He had a winning effort against Shelton Benjamin. His entrance without Scarlett was strange. We've become accustomed to that. We were also missing the lasers and the fog from the entrance, and it just felt very small time compared to his NXT entrance. The NXT entrance, I realize it's a lot. At the beginning, it felt like a lot, but we've become accustomed to it, and it's become part of his deal and his mystique. And without it, it really feels like he's lacking something to me. And it just made him feel like another guy, just another NXT guy rather than the NXT guy.
So I wish I had the tweet in front of me to cite it, but the cruelest tweet I saw on this was, his entrance looks like the default creator wrestler entrance.
Oh,
it does.
That's so terrible, but true. It's just weird. It just, it's such a random thing for them to put on main event too. I mean, there definitely the news of the dark match was circulating. Then we find out that it was going to be on main event. Then we find out, we were going to be able to see it, and it just fell off. It just, understandably, if this is a tryout, especially for television, understand it. But yeah, I think there's elements, especially that entrance, that makes a big difference. And his association with Scarlett has been one, that started, we saw it in Mexico, that origin happened in Mexico and has been profound in both of their careers in that partnership. And so you just wonder, I can understand if the focus was meant to be on the wrestling, but it just makes you wonder if for any reason they decide to separate them. But maybe just for the purposes of this, because it was a one-off, it was just, hey, here's your standard, get out there, wrestle. Let's have a match against someone like Shelton Benjamin. Who can wrestle anybody. Like, it is truly a tryout to do that. So I understand that they're not doing kind of all the visuals, because you don't really need it unless you are intentionally moving someone to a different roster. I think for the purposes of what they did this week, it was very apparent that this was kind of just a trial.
So I have a opinion on this too. As you mentioned, it's a trial, and part of that also is finding out how much of this product that is carrying Cross is that fantastic entrance and that chemistry he has with Scarlett. So you strip all of that away and you put him in there with a wrestler's wrestler like Shelton Benjamin. You can really see what the raw materials you have are for moving him up to a Raw by himself, if that's what they need to do, or if they need to bring Scarlett and the fireworks and all of that. So, in my opinion, it shows a lot of faith in Cross to try it that way. And I think that's as much as everybody hates it, I think it's a good sign of the faith that they have in him to be a guy that can move up to Raw and maybe stand on his own merits. And I keep saying Raw, SmackDown actually is the premier show right now. That's the one that
Truly. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's where the best stuff is. Raw is jumbled and chaotic.
It's hard to watch.
SmackDown.
It's very hard to watch. Well, there you go. That is this week in WWE. Don't forget the results for both SmackDown and Raw are available on luchacentral.com. We are going to circle around to MLW. Due to our recording schedule last week, we weren't able to share that much information on MLW, but we do have some updates. First off, Battle Riot. It is officially sold out.
Yes.
That means all the tickets are sold. No more tickets left for Battle Riot, happening in just a few weeks on July 10th. We also do have an update on confirmed entrants to the Battle Riot, including some really well-known Lucha Libre names. Most recently, Savio Vega was confirmed, TJP, Gino Medina.
Sorry.
Well, I know. I mean, that's storyline continuity that they haven't quite addressed yet. Well, he wasn't quite dead. Also, I think at one point they were saying Conan was dead. Like, Conan had, mysteriously disappeared.
Yeah, they didn't address Conan's possible death, but I mean,
yes.
I saw Savio Vega buried in the woods.
I mean, did we see he was actually buried? We saw him getting attacked the shoveling happened, but we just don't know exactly what happened.
I know what I saw.
What are you going to believe, them or your lying eyes?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the list. Please.
No, it's good. I'm very big on storyline continuity. When even just the change of Cesar Duran's name to address Dario Cueto association, that was just perfect. So the fact you are correct that we may see zombie Savio Vega, that's how we go about this.
I'd be good with that, actually. That sounds exciting to me.
I think enough people have seen zombies in wrestling for about a year.
But not zombies fueled by the Azteca.
I'm just saying it could be dangerous. Just
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Okay.
Fantasy Savio Vega as a zombie. Cool. That's what we do on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. But also confirmed for the Battle Riot, TJP, Gino Medina, Ares, Gringo Loco, Zenshi, and King Muertes, who's going to be pulling double duty because it was also announced that he's going to be facing Richard Holiday in a Caribbean Heavyweight Championship match under Caribbean rules, which means there are no rules. That means you just fight like Puerto Ricans. You just fight. That's what you do. That's what you do. So that is an update on Battle Riot. Because Battle Riot 3 has already sold out, they have also announced that they are going to return to Philadelphia on October 2nd for Fightland. So tickets are also going to be available for that, and MLW's making their very apparent, clear presence in the 2300 arena in Philadelphia to much great success. So we are going to be excited to continue to see them again. This event happening, Battle Riot 3 is happening on July 10th. They're going to be filming as well for future episodes of Fusion, and it's going to be big. This is also going to be possibly the big reveal of plans for Azteca Underground. So, we will continue to see what happens. We are nearing the end of the draft. No big Lucha Libre signings this week, but Contra has been confirmed as a re-sign. So again, Contra unit runs MLW. We will see if that somehow intertwines with Azteca Underground at any point. Also, some interesting news that came out. Now, this came out from the Wrestling Observer, so, take it with a grain of salt for those of you who may not be big fans of the Wrestling Observer. However, it's noted that MLW is looking to tape some content in Los Angeles for Azteca Underground to make it look very much like a Lucha Underground. They're going to film their matches there and do vignettes during the summer. And it looks like they may have just filmed as recently as last week in Los Angeles. So, again, the association to Lucha Underground is very, very apparent. And I'm just going to use this opportunity to throw out a side project that myself, Dusty, and Brendan did earlier this week related to Lucha Underground. The three of us did an episode of Chairshot Radio on thechairshot.com. It's a daily brief podcast hosted by a variety of people on the Chairshot Radio network. And we had the honor of being on Wednesday's episode where we talked about Lucha Underground. We talked about the history behind it, why it just resonated with fans, and some of the possibilities of this new iteration with Azteca Underground. So make sure you check out this week's episode, the Wednesday episode of Chairshot Radio at thechairshot.com. Myself, Brendan, Dusty, all were a part of that episode. And it's just a great quick 20 minutes about our thoughts on Lucha Underground. But I'm going to hand it off to these guys real quick before we get into the second half of MLW news with your thoughts on all of this, with Battle Riot entrance, with the Azteca Underground news. What are your thoughts? Dusty, I'll start with you.
I am really excited. MLW has kind of shown that they're going to do this right, as you mentioned, with going to LA to tape the content. Hopefully we'll see them in Boyle Heights. We've seen Mil Muertes return as King Muertes. Like you say, Cesar Duran, formerly Dario Cueto. They've gotten all the pieces together. Brendan's mentioned this before. In addition to the little red bull on the desk, they still have the name tag, the nameplate that says kind of a big deal. They have taken the time to get all the minutia right. And if you're going to do that, the bigger picture can only be right as well, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that they'll be able to capture some more of that lightning in a bottle.
Just real quick, yes. I'm gonna make people listen to my full thoughts on this, because I had a bigger rant on it on the chair shot one about what I think they can do. I tied it into MLW's history with being spiritual successor to ECW, and I think that they're going to be able to do a similar thing here. But MLW is a wrestling product, so there's going to be a double-edged sword, and I'm sorry, Meef, but they're probably not going to have as much of the mysticism as they had on the original show. So there's going to be mileage is going to vary.
Not if they include Zombie Savio Vega.
I didn't say they wouldn't have any. I said they're probably not going to have as much.
Very fair. Fair enough.
That's
true statement.
That's that's like I say, that's your mixed, your mileage is going to vary sort of thing there. But if you listen to the chair shot, you can tell the long rant I did on there. You can tell I'm very positive about this too. So go over there and listen to my extended thoughts on this.
And this this week in MLW Underground, a pretty great lucha centric episode. It starts off with the Havana Pitbulls versus Los Maximos. And this is the debut of the Havana Pitbulls. So it's a really fun match to watch. I enjoyed it. I thought that, I mean, again, this is the premiere of Rocky Romero in MLW. So, you know, the pin itself, the finish was pretty quick. You know, I could see why the Los Maximos was contested with them, but I think that this was a great introduction for the Havana Pitbulls and a great counterpart to Los Maximos, who, again, were more of the high-flying, more of the speed in Lucha Libre, with the Havana Pitbulls being a little bit more of the brawler style. Mm. And then we also had Raven versus Vampiro, which was part of a continuation of a feud that they had. And again, I mean, talk about successors to ECW. This match, this field, this whole show, especially Underground, but this match in particular, felt very much like something you would have seen in ECW.
Mm-hmm. And it just to really get people going on this isn't the old man Raven or the old man Vampiro that we later saw still trying to wrestle, right? Like, I mean, and by the way, those matches are still great and magical, but if you can remember the energy they had in WCW and just how, you know, magical WCW and ECW was for both of those guys, they were coming off of that, and you got a lot more hints of that in this match. So, you know, totally recommend this match. I saw it was listed as the main event, and I went out of my way to watch it. So, and I did not regret it at all. I lost some sleep that night. R.I.P.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it was an incredible match. It did have a very ECW feel in a big way. You know, it was just incredible. I missed out on this era of Vampiro. Like, he never came around here during that time. I never saw him on programming. So it's really exciting for me to go back and see it now. And, you know, kind of catch up on that. It's interesting to see him in that transitionary period.
Yes, very much so, because you're absolutely right. It was not kind of old man Vampiro we see. It's not WCW Vampiro. It's something in between. Mm-hmm. And it's actually really good because you still have that intensity in his promo work and in his fighting. And he's still able to do some things now. And again, like a Vampiro Raven feud where I don't think we saw that in WCW, or if it.
No, I think they were on opposite ends.
Yeah, exactly. But that would have actually worked really well in WCW. But at the same time, it wouldn't have gotten to that level of grit that we saw on this episode of Underground. So I feel like this was kind of the perfect setting for both of these wrestlers. But MLW Underground continues to be a gem in the wrestling world. It's available on MLW's YouTube page for free. So you can watch it each and every week. New episodes drop. And again, we are still going to keep you informed, keep you up to date on everything leading up to Battle Riot, hopefully leading up to Fightland, and eventually, hopefully seeing what Azteca Underground brings about. And again, just a final plug for our episode of Chairshot Radio at thechairshot.com. The Wednesday edition, myself, Dusty, and Brendan, we talk about Lucha Underground. We give our thoughts. We go a bit into depth into it. And so if you want to know more about it, go ahead and listen to it and let us know your thoughts on Lucha Underground, on Azteca Underground, and everything in between. Finally, for the last part of our show, we are talking Impact Wrestling. This was also something that got kind of impacted, pun intended, by our recording schedule last week. One of my favorite things is I predicted the future, the head honchos at Impact Wrestling are listening to the show.
Maybe both.
Maybe a little bit of both. I could absolutely see that being both. But in last week's episode, I fantasy booked out into the universe that I'd love to see an Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. And swear to not, less than 24 hours later, it was confirmed by Impact Wrestling that we indeed are going to get an X Division match for the the X Division Championship, which I am super, super excited for. I mean, they've been setting this up for quite some time with all of the contenders in the X Division, and it just gets me super excited for this. Let me pull up all of the announced competitors in this match. We are going to see Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Rohit Raju, Petey Williams, Chris Bay, and champion Josh Alexander in an Ultimate X match at Slammiversary, Saturday, July 17th. So, sold. I am sold.
So I'm going to give you another chance for some more blatant promotion, too. One of those guys' names that you just read, you also worked with right after that match was announced.
I did. So, and there's actually a funny story because I talked to him a little bit about this. But Chris Bay was at the FSW 11th and 12th anniversary show, this past Saturday, I believe or Friday and Saturday. I'm fairly sure, at least for sure it's Friday. I wasn't there on Saturday, so I'm not sure. But he was in a match with Trey Lamar. I'm sorry, not even Trey Lamar. I'm sorry, Casey Navarro. Trey Lamar is someone else faced a while ago. But let me reform my thoughts. So Chris Bay faced Casey Navarro in the main event of night 1 of Future Stars of Wrestling's 11th and 12th anniversary show. And actually behind the scenes backstage, I did talk to Chris Bay a little bit, congratulating him on the opportunity to be in an Ultimate X match. He seemed very excited about it. He's very confident, absolutely confident in his ability to perform in this match. And he is, fairly certain he is going to be coming out of this match as X Division champion. I did, tell him, cuidado, be careful, because this is an Ultimate X match that requires you to climb up, these, I don't know exactly how to call them, but like these almost rails or these, these railings and a rope to climb up and to get this ladder. So, I am absolutely pulling for Chris Bay in this match. I think he defines the X Division, he is the ultimate finesser. He has the finesse. He has the style. He has the charisma. He has the technical ability. And I can see him being a star in this match, if not winning the match completely. And it's a really robust lineup in this match. Of course, you have Trey Miguel, who has continued to reinvent himself and to show this new aggression and attitude in the X Division. Ace Austin, a multi-time X Division champion, truly a wild card. We're going to use the card puns out here. You never know what's going to happen with Ace Austin, but he absolutely has the technical ability in this match as well. Not only does he have the cockiness and kind of the scheming in this, but he absolutely has the ability. Petey Williams, someone that we haven't really seen in a ring quite some time, but he is a foundation of the X Division. And even at his age, he looks in the best shape of his entire life.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah. And then Rohit Raju, who, loves to kind of play games. He'll make alliance one moment and he'll stab you in the back in the next, which is exactly what he's doing right now with Ace Austin. But he's someone who is very smart and calculated, and he can absolutely use that to his advantage. Plus, someone who can very much go in the ring, which I think continuously surprises people. And of course, Josh Alexander, your champion. Fantastic. Love him.
Okay, so for people who may not have watched Impact for any reason here, this is a unique match to them. Can you maybe describe the match real quick, too?
Yeah, so I was trying to explain, because I don't know the right wording, but Ultimate X is a match where the belt championship is suspended above the ring, and this is not a suspension like a ladder match. It is suspended with railings or poles from each side of the ring to create an X, where the term Ultimate X comes from. And so there are no ladders. So you don't climb a ladder to get to the title. You have to climb up these poles and then across the ropes up above the ring to get the championship belt. And it is something very unique to Impact Wrestling / TNA history. And it's really solidified in the X division. It is the only division that's done an Ultimate X match. And I mean, a lot of wrestling greats have gone and been participants in Ultimate X matches.
Surprisingly, Samoa Joe has a win in an Ultimate X match, which when you see the structure for Ultimate X, you don't think Samoa Joe's the guy that's going to win this one.
No.
Just
Again, you have to climb up these poles and across to these suspended wires. So, I mean, you have to be a good climber. I don't think Samoa Joe's a good climber. He's a good climber.
But that's why I say it's surprising. You don't look at him and think he's the guy that's gonna climb across there. It sounded like you were maybe gonna say something, Dusty.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, I love the format of the Ultimate X and the hanging belt and everything. But yeah, Samoa Joe was a big surprise at the time. Like, I don't think anybody expected him to be as quick and as lithe as he was in that match compared to some of the other X Division guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and other. I mean, so we said that the other wrestlers that we think of now as cruiserweights or that came through TNA at the time were in a lot of these matches. Both of the Motor City Machine Guns have been in a lot of them.
AJ Styles.
When CMLL was partnering with them, you had luchadors there that were in Ultimate X matches too. I believe Extreme Tiger was in one of the bigger ones.
He was.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, this is a very, very unique match, but also it's a big showcase for a very specific type of wrestler. And sometimes even a surprising one. I still want to see Willie Mack in one of these at some point because I think he would do very well in an Ultimate X too.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, you're absolutely right. As far as the experience factor, it goes to Petey Williams. Not only just being a staple in Impact and TNA, but he's been in Ultimate X matches before.
Bunches of them.
Yes, bunches of them. Yes. So I mean, yeah, it's hard to beat against experience, but again, this is one of the most stacked X Division rosters in Impact history. So I mean, it's hard to deny the talent, and the strength and prowess and ability of all of the wrestlers in this match. So this absolutely has the ability to steal the show and to be on the highlight reel of everyone's social media on Impact Wrestling. It really could take over everything.
I hope it does. I really do.
Yeah.
All of those guys deserve a big spotlight, and this could be the match that does it for them.
Yes. And so Ace Austin was previously, and Trey Miguel, they've also been in Ultimate X matches. Actually, Ace Austin was in the last one, that had Johnny Mundo / Johnny Impact, on here. And that was back in 2019.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes. So, and of course, Trey Miguel was in the one previous to that at Homecoming against Rich Swann, Ethan Page, and Jake Christ. So, yeah, I mean, there's a long history, and I'm glad that you reminded me to share a little bit about that, because very much as you think about the cruiserweights in WCW, it's very similar, parallel to how a lot of people think about the X Division in Impact Wrestling / TNA.
Absolutely. It's always one of my favorite parts of their programming.
Yes. And real quick, this week on Impact Wrestling, we did see TJ, it was this week. Hold on, this is actually last week, sorry. I'm just going back. So last week, again, because we recorded early, we did see TJP versus Black Taurus in a match, in which TJP won. He had a big tornado DDT and ended up setting up for the Mamba Splash. However, he was quickly attacked by Moose, in order to capture the attention of Scott D'Amore, who ended up wanting to get his attention over the pretty controversial ending of Against All Odds against that main event against Kenny Omega, which LOL, the Young Bucks ruined everything. That's echo the Young Bucks ruined everything, interfered in that match. So yes, that is the beginning of last week's Impact Wrestling. Not a lot of lucha content this week, though we did see, again, P.D. Williams and Trey Miguel team up versus Rohit Raju and Shira, and we did get a melee after the match of all the competitors in the Ultimate X match. So that is, I think, if that's something you're looking for something to watch at Impact Wrestling, the X division is where it's at. And with that, well, we've reached the end of this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can follow Lucha Central on social media too, at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at LuchaCentralCom on Twitter. Check out the YouTube page that has hours upon hours of matches and interviews and exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Dusty, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, and I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321. T-shirt guy is all spelled out. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at the #Miranda, hashtag spelled out. Again, check out our episode of Chairshot Radio at thechairshot.com. It is the Wednesday episode where we cover our thoughts on Lucha Underground and this new possible iteration of Azteca Underground. And make sure to check out our partners, thechairshot.com, your source for wrestling news, analysis, opinions, sports, entertainment, and sports entertainment. Thank you all so much for listening again. Make sure you tune in to us here as well on luchacentral.com. And don't worry, we will be back next week, so join us then.